Where's the city of tomorrow, which is now a group of about 100 entrepreneurs, but with a radiation through communities of about 12,000, all people who are aware and willing to put energy in this. Here in Holland, we face now another 3 major streams of transformation. The very first stream of transformation which is needed is the banks. The banks have been speculating with money. They have been printing money like hell out of nothing. There was no gold collateral or anything, and they've been speculating it into debt systems about 30 times more than their own value. If they continue doing that, they've caused already a credit crisis, which caused our governments to put in a hell of a lot of money to try to save those banks. If they keep doing that, they will cause crisis after crisis, because they've really created one big Las Vegas around the world. It's a gambling system. The banks have to go back to basics and manage the true value that we create altogether. They have to go back to basics. And if they don't, the big banks, then we will create new banks ourselves, people who are aware of this, people and new banks who can actually manage. Banks have to get away from this speculation, because otherwise we are going to be staying in this very delicate, unstable environment. It's the very first thing. Second thing we see is that entrepreneurship, big corporate organizations are going to change, and they are changing. If you put money up front, and that is your main goal, like stakeholders and shareholders always want, they want money, 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 what are you willing to sacrifice? Everything we've seen, right? So if money is not the goal anymore, what is then the goal? And then we get to the spaceship. So we go to business. If money is the goal, what is your identity? I ask big companies, what is your identity if you say, I want money? Are you a bank then or something? What is your identity? If you really do change, then you change from using mankind and using the planet as costs, right? Because you use humans as personnel, they are number, and they have to get into production processes or service processes. You use mankind, you use the planet, resources, those kind of things for your production processes, whatever. If you use the planet for your own purposes, you have to change to serve mankind and the planet for our common purposes, to maintain this beautiful spaceship intact and jointly improve it. And that is the main mission of entrepreneurship, of business. Corporate organizations around the world are currently discussing their own identity and coming to the conclusion that they have to become serving institutions. Yep. And then we find another situation. The last 30 years or 40 years, governments, because of all the things that were happening, like pollution, like climate changes, like social problems due to the enormous migrations, governments had to start regulating all these mishaps. Then you ask yourself, why did they prohibit polluting organizations? They couldn't, because the economies were attached to these same polluting industries. So the only thing was left over was regulation. But you can't now, as Rob van Gijssel beautifully says, we want to be an energy neutral city by 35. You can't do that through regulation. You can't say, I regulate it into a energy neutral city. You have to do that by facilitating the use of all the innovations that we can put in place. So government, using the new mentality of entrepreneurship as a serving entity for mankind and planet, has to open itself up, stop regulating, and allow us to implement the changes from a holistic perspective. And I've taken up 2 particular examples where I show you what is happening. and why we have to do this together and we can't do this alone. This is here San Francisco, and you see here a street packed with cars. That is the consequence of continuous growth. Time for change? I would think so. What would you do otherwise when growth? Make a double layers or a triple layers and more cars? What would you change if you see this? Well, where would you start? Would you change the car? Right? Make it smaller so that more fit on that road? Would you change the infrastructure like we do with the A2? Broaden it, make it wider so we destruct even more countryside? Our human behavior, you tell everybody, don't go from A to B, stay at home. Is that what we want to do? Energy, so we change all the engines in these cars and we make it electric and we've solved the problem? Now, do we go for co-creative innovation? Do we discuss what is the sense of mobility? Are we going to say automobility is not a box of 4 wheels, but it is our own decision? Auto means self. Our self-decision on mobility. Are we going to change the whole perspective of mobility? That's probably what we are going to do. But we have to then challenge everything. So are we going to structural change, or are we staying on the perspective of growth? A second example I would like to share with you is the city of Madrid. In real time, the university, our friends of the University of Madrid, are measuring the pollution of the city. So if a truck is driving from south to north through the city, you can actually see in real time the fluctuations of the pollution. Yeah? So you know where it comes from. But there's a hell of a lot polluting in a city with 5 million people. Yeah? What would you do to change that enormous pollution? What would you do? You want to get rid of it. What do? You change the intercity mobility? Do you say you are not allowed to get into the city anymore? Is that the solution? Would you change the city design? Human behavior, energy again? How would you do this? The only way to do this is take a holistic perspective together with government and co-creation with all the innovative people who have the awareness and challenge everything. We are now, as City of Tomorrow, discussing with certain cities here in Holland what we call Madurodam areas. Areas of minor cities, cities where we can create within the confinement of a particular rule-free zones, areas where regulation doesn't apply, where we ask, stop regulation, trust us, and let us try to implement a series of parallel actions trying to prove with measurement that we can actually make changes on terms of energy neutral, CO2 reduction, but also intercultural communication, social cohesion and those kind of things. Yeah, that is what we are trying, and we are obviously battling against all the regulations and the attitude of government. But do you really think that we are impressed by that? Not at all. We are willing to challenge everything, and if we work together, we are capable of actually doing the things that we need to do.